So we are officially starting with our pantry challenge videos, and we are about to approach lunchtime on the homestead for day one. As you saw in that previous video, we started out with yogurt and granola this morning. It's basically just been snacking on leftovers. And Chris and I just sat here and I went, what should we have for lunch? And both of us drew up blank. Do you ever get that? Where it's just like we've been cooking and eating so much the last week over the holidays. I really just don't want to. And when you look in the fridge, there just isn't anything. I'm sick of the leftovers and I'm sick of this. Anyways, so I think we're going to have to go down and raid the pantry and see if we can find some healthy food. Maybe we'll do a soup or something like that, quite simple for lunch today. I will admit, even coming down here and looking at the pantry shelves, which are quite sparse because I have slacked on those ready-made meals, it is tough to make that decision, but I think we're going to go with the turkey barley soup because guess what we've got? More turkey, broth, and meat coming to make some more turkey barley soup. Soup's on. As you saw, we chose that turkey barley soup. I do have a recipe video for that, which I will link above. But as we're eating this, there is no rest for the weary around here. Doesn't matter if we're New Year's Day and recovering from a late evening. We still have to keep going. We butchered a whole bunch of our silky chickens at the end of 2024, and what I have in this pot is broth made out of all the wonderful bones that we had, the ones we'd cooked up. So this needs to get into my pressure canner because what I have behind me here is the turkey broth from the turkey from Christmas dinner. So this needs to be transferred to that so that we can make up that turkey barley soup and get that pressure canned as well. Although that will probably be tomorrow because I don't work that quickly. I have to say, I think broth is one of my favorite things to can. It is so easy. It goes in the pressure canner, so I don't need to sterilize those jars. I don't need to fully boil this. I just need to bring it to a nice temperature. I don't like to put cold into my pressure canner. It just takes a lot longer for it all to heat up and get to pressure. And it's only 20 minutes in the pressure canner. So it is a win-win. It is one of those nice fast things to can and get out of the way, and it gets those bones and things out of the freezer, which is really important around here right now. So we are ready to go. I have soaked my lids, heated them up, soaked them. What is that called? I've heated, I guess. I've simmered. So I've simmered my lid. That was a process. So I've simmered my lids and got everything ready to go. So we're just going to whip through this. I'm really hoping to get 16 jars. My pressure canner would hold 18, but I think 16 jars is a nice number for on the shelf because we're starting to get a lot of chicken broth. Not that that's a bad problem. So we're going to get it canned up into the canner, and then we're going to sort out our turkey meat and get that sitting overnight so that we can skim off all the fat and bad stuff. It's not bad, but we don't want it in our canning. And then we'll see what else we get up to. So we have everything in the pot. We ended up with only 14 jars, but that's okay. 14 jars is still pretty good. So next we're going to put the lid on. We're going to quickly go through a few steps that I like to follow when I'm pressure canning. Even though this is broth and it's super simple, I still go through the same steps no matter what I do. This little guy right here, which is your vent hole, you want to make sure you can see daylight through that. You want to make sure it's clean. The other thing I always check is that I've got nice, good movement in the locking part there. Don't know, it's probably got some sort of technical term. I don't know what it is. But often, especially if you have hard water, that can get a buildup on it and it doesn't pop up, which can cause the pressure to build in there without you knowing it. So definitely make sure you take it off every now and then, soak it in some vinegar and water, and just kind of keep it moving. What's that word? When something can move easier. You keep it. We're going to just leave that. Just make sure it can move. Then the other thing that I like to do is I take my ring and we want to put a little bit of olive oil on there. So I just take it, tip it upside down so I've got a little bit of liquid in the lid. Like that. Get some on my fingers. Boom, boom, boom. There you can see it. And around the ring we go. Just like that, so that we've got a little bit of that. It just preserves your, or prolongs the life of your gasket. In it goes. Make sure we don't have a bump where that little vent hole is. Flip it over. Line up our, oh no! My pressure canner lost the handle marker. It was only a little white sticker, but it was very helpful. So now you're going to watch me struggle while I try and figure out which way it goes. I'm guessing not that way. Let's see. Yeah. I'm definitely going to find some sort of sticker to put back on that. Then at this point, just a medium to high heat is what I put it on. Get it to the point that that pops up. Drop our weight onto our vent, and away we go. 20 minutes once that's up to 10 pounds pressure. So that is what we're up to today. We're going to get this turkey broth sorted out, and I imagine we're having leftovers for supper. So once again, day 2 breakfast, we're having our yogurt. This time I went with cherry and blueberry sauce. So definitely we're cruising through the jams, jellies, and sauces downstairs. So we're going to be working on that fruit that I talked about in the freezer. Coffee, essential. And since we have to go get hay this morning, we're moving a little bit quicker, but going through the cookbook, looking for some ideas for Saturday for our finger food Christmas dinner, and also working with what we have here. So, gonna have my coffee, wake up, and then we gotta go and feed animals and go get food for animals. So I'm not sure what we're gonna get up to today. All right, so I forgot to talk a little bit this morning about the canning that we did yesterday, but the chicken broth all sealed beautifully, and they're ready to be labeled and go down into the pantry, which is fantastic because the pantry is looking a little bit slim. And once again, more leftovers. We did fondue for New Year's Eve, so we are eating leftovers like it's going out of fashion. So for lunch, broccoli, cauliflower, lamb with the rest of our fondue cheese melted on top. So it's going to be perfect. All right, guys, we are back in the groove of it. We are finally through pretty much all the leftovers. We've got a little bit of fruit left, but for the most part, the holiday season leftovers are eaten and gone. But now we are on to emptying that freezer and having another potlucky type family get together. So we've gotten some lamb out of the freezer, 3 pounds, and we're going to be making teriyaki meatballs for our finger food appetizer, as well as some bean and cheese dip to go with some veggie sticks and things like that. So let's get going on these meatballs because they're kind of got to get put together here so that we can get them organized. We're running really behind schedule, which is what we like to do. I've got all my ingredients out here. We're going to go through things kind of quick. I'm doing 3 pounds, so you can adjust this recipe however you see fit, but I always make lots because then I have leftovers, right? I love leftovers. It makes things so simple for days. Okay, so I'm using ground lamb for this. You could use ground beef. I've seen people use ground turkey. Really, it kind of is the world your oyster. You could probably even do it with a pork blend if you had that. This is just what we raise here on the farm is lamb. We eat a lot of lamb, so I sub it in for so many recipes. This is not a specific to lamb recipe. So what we're going to do first is get our meat here. We're going to add a 1/2 cup of panko breadcrumbs. Now, I know this is not something moving forward that I will continue to purchase because 1/2 cup is 22 grams of carbs. But for this particular instance, I'm mixing that into 3 pounds instead of just 1 pound, which is what the original recipe would have been before I realized I was high blood sugar. So 1/2 cup spread over a lot of meatballs is not too bad. So we're going to put our 1/2 cup in, and then we'll go through the rest of the ingredients really, really quickly. And then next you need your 1/4 cup of finely chopped onions. I really like mine to get quite fine so that they blend into that meat and it doesn't cause the meatballs to fall apart. So in they go. A heaping 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And again, a heaping 1/4 teaspoon of ginger powder. A little sprinkle of black pepper, not too terribly much. And 1 large egg. Now because we use silky eggs, it's 2 smaller eggs. And the last thing to go in this meat is 2 teaspoons of sesame oil. We love sesame around here. And I think with teriyaki, it just goes wonderfully. And now we get our hands dirty. Thinking I maybe, should have gone in a bigger bowl. I didn't think this through at all. We're going to do that. Much better in a big bowl, I will say. But we just about got it all blended up, and I'm going to bring in assistance because time is passing way too quickly, and get James to make these into our meatballs while I get our sauce made. All right, so while James is working on forming all of our meatballs so we can get them in the oven, you want to pre-cook those. Now we're doing about 1.5 inch size meatballs. That's nice little bite size because we're going to have them on toothpicks with a little piece of pineapple on top. It's going to be wonderful. So while that's happening, we're going to make our sauce. I'm just going to quickly go through the ingredients here. It's a lot easier to read it off my cheat sheet. We're starting off with 3/4 cup soy sauce in our pot. We're going to get this kind of heating because we want it to thicken up to be a nice sauce before we pour it over the meatballs. We're going to add 1/4 cup of brown sugar to that. Now the recipe would be for 1/2 cup of brown sugar, but we are subbing out half of the sugar for stevia. And by stevia, I don't mean the store-bought stevia. I'm not 100% sure how much you would need of that, but I'm using 1/2 teaspoon of, yes, our green powdered stevia. We grow this right in the garden. Just grind it up into a fine powder, and I sub it in for so much sugar product, and it saves us so many sugar carbs and all that for keeping the blood sugars in check. So the more I experiment with this, the more I love it, and the more we're going to have to grow next year. You know, it's a sign. I just said to James, boy, oh boy, is this brown sugar ever getting hard. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, when was the last time I used brown sugar? And I honestly couldn't tell you. It's been, oh my gosh.
Certainly not this year.
And it's really stuck in this pot. If anybody's got tips on how you kind of make hard packed sugar that's dried out go soft again so it's easier to get out, I would really love to hear that. Anyways, I think I might finally be, I wouldn't call that packed, but we don't want extra sugar anyway. So there's our 1/4 cup. 3/4 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And then we're just going to simmer that in our pot, get it to a light boil so that it thickens up, and then we'll pour it over those meatballs once they come out of the oven, and it'll be amazing. All right, so that's everything in the pot. We're just going to stir that around and wait for that to heat up. James is doing amazing at the meatballs. Our oven is preheated, ready to go. So I think we might just make it. All right, we are down to the wire. We have less than an hour before we have to leave. Meatballs are in the oven. They take about 40 minutes, give or take. I'm doing it at 400 instead of 375, so hopefully it goes okay. But the sauce turned out incredible. It is super thick, super wonderful. And I was a little bit concerned by decreasing that sugar that it wouldn't be, but we're going to give it a taste test right now, just to see. But you can see on my finger, look at how thick it is. It doesn't even come off. And that's what I wanted on my meatballs because these are going to sit on the plate. It's really hot on my finger. And just have the little pineapple on top. So I wanted the sauce to stick to those balls. It is pretty good. A little bit on the salty side. But that's because I didn't have any low sodium soy sauce. So the one thing I would recommend, low sodium soy sauce. But it's pretty darn good. Let's bring in the big guns to taste test this. Are you going to come over here and be on camera to taste test this? He's like, no. It's pretty good. A little on the salty side, but I think it'll be good with the meat. But it
won't be once you get it on meat because, yeah.
I think it gets the thumbs up. Anyways, we now have to move on because we're doing that bean and cheese dip to mix with our veggies that we have on the go. We have vegetarians that are part of the family, so we're doing a plant-based dip out of here. I love this book. We do use quite a few recipes out of there, even though we are pretty good meat eaters here. So we are doing the bean cheese dip. So this is the first time I've made this one. I'm excited to see how it goes. We're going to use our own canned kidney beans, and we need some salt. Anyways, we'll go through the ingredients as we go. All right, so done the textbook trick of not reading all the instructions before I get going. And as you know, we have less than an hour till takeoff time. This was supposed to be done in a slow cooker. So we're going to attempt to do it slowly-ish on the stove in a pot. So I'm going to quickly go through the ingredients here. We're going to get it in. It's really, really easy. Everything just goes in the pot and you heat it up and basically that's it. So we need 2 cups of kidney beans. You want to make sure they're rinsed and drained. And then I put them in first because you really want to mash them up before you kind of get going with everything else. The advantage of my own kidney beans is they're pretty soft, so it's pretty easy to mash them up. Then 1 cup of salsa, which I'm using my homemade charred salsa. I do think I have a video for that recipe, so I will link it in one of these corners here. Then you need 1 really pressed in cup of cheese. You can use vegan cheese here if you want to. We're just using regular cheddar, actually cheddar with a little bit of jalapenos in it because we had it left over from Christmas. 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon of chili powder, 1/4 teaspoon of coriander, 1/2 teaspoon of cumin, and basically whatever you're going to be serving it with, which we're doing veggies. You could do tortilla chips or the little like naan bread pieces, anything like that. So let's get everything in the pot and see how this goes without a slow cooker. All right, we're down to 30 minutes. So everything is in the pot and I'm kind of just stirring it around, but I'm keeping it on quite low heat because obviously if it's supposed to be done in a slow cooker, it's supposed to take its time. But the beans worked up or mashed up beautifully and it smells super good. And I will admit I did a taste test off of my finger and it tastes pretty good. That charred salsa really brings it together, but that little extra chili powder, all that sort of stuff, I think it's going to be fantastic. And Chris right now is working hard at cutting up veggies for our tray to go with this dip. So I think we're going to be good. So the dip is melted. I don't know. It's been maybe 20 minutes and I think it's good. Ask Chris. He says, if it tastes good, go with it. So we're going to taste it. Let's see what it tastes like. It definitely clings to the veggies quite nicely. Like I said, never had this one. Oh my gosh. Never had this one before. I had done that little taste on my finger, but the cheese hadn't melted at that point. Oh, this is a keeper. Big time keeper. We'll get Chris to try a piece too, but it is really good. Definitely give it a try, guys. Oh my goodness. Get in there. That's really good. Anyways, nice little vegetarian appetizer to go with what we're bringing. And I just checked on the meatballs and they look perfect. So we're going to get them out so that they can get out of the grease because I don't want all that grease to start to harden. And then we got to put them in the sauce and then we're going to make them into their little sticks with pineapples when we get there. Look at that. It coated those meatballs so beautifully. Can't wait. Well, guys, we are about to make dinner for the final day of this week of the video. We are the 5th of January, and boy, is it passing fast. And I will admit, we've barely eaten anything from the pantry. I am keeping track so far. We have taken 1 jar of beans, 1 jar of charred salsa, and 1 jar of turkey barley soup. So it's been a bit uneventful because it has been leftovers and we've still been socializing with family. So that's a good thing because that just means the food's going to last a little bit longer. But tonight we're going to be making butter chicken curry and we're going to be using our homegrown bean sprouts. This is something that over the winter we do probably about 4 jars of these a week at least, and it works fantastic whether it's for chow mein, stir fries, curries, so many things. Gives you those fresh greens. It's wonderful. And of course, butter chicken that you just saw us make the other week because we were all out. But have no fear because look behind me here. Ta-da! That's right. We're going into the next round. Tomorrow is going to be an intense canning day, and I'll be sure to document it for the next video here for the pantry challenge. But emptied 4 more bags out of that freezer outside of tomatoes. Still have 4 more to go. We're going to do all 3 batches of butter chicken, so hopefully we can get them done. I also took a bag of frozen peppers out because we've finally gone through all those peppers that we had from last year. So let's get this butter chicken made. Really, there is nothing to it. We're going to just put a bunch of ingredients in the pot. Onions, carrots. We're going to actually use a Canada crookneck squash in there because we took the neck off. It was starting to spoil and I've got the little ball bit left. So we're going to chop that up. That's going to go in there because as you know, we don't eat rice. So it's usually either a potato or a squash or something like that that goes into our curries. So I'm going to get busy and I'll show you what we get at the end. So since I'm trying to empty out some freezer space, right? And I did say for this pantry challenge, we were going to try and eat more from the freezer. We did those peppers. I'm also going to put some of our noodle beans. These are actually beans from 2023. These aren't even 2024 yet. I think I still have 1 more bag from 2023. We didn't put nearly as many in the freezer this year as we did previously. I always thought I'd eat way more beans, but the noodle beans I do love. So we did put extra of those away. And the other thing I got, which I forgot to mention, was chicken. chicken out of the freezer. This is already pre-cooked, so we're just gonna bung it in right at the end with those bean sprouts, put the lid on and let it all steam and warm up. It's gonna be fantastic. So this is going well so far. I have to admit, I do love colorful food. So I've got quite the array of vegetables in there now, and I'm going to use a little bit of our frozen kale from the garden from this year. So I'm going to just put that in. It's nice, and it breaks up usually pretty good once you get it going. So we're adding that, getting some greens in. And now we just have to simmer, so we're going to put in our chicken, our bean sprouts. Need to go in. Look at those, fresh and lovely. Break them up a little bit. And last but not least is our butter chicken. We will add coconut milk to this right before we serve it. And now I'm going to just put the lid on, let that simmer and create its own juice for 10 minutes. All right, dinner is happily bubbling away. We are down to the final ingredient in my mind, and that is our coconut milk. I love getting coconut milk in these big containers, and this one is wonderful because there's absolutely nothing in it. I know I've talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again in case anybody is new to the channel or new to watching my videos. Always check the ingredients because it's amazing what is in some of the coconut milk. This one here, this Thai Kitchen, is only water and coconut. That's it. In we go, and I can just kind of measure out what I think I need. I don't have to use the whole jar. It keeps really, really well in the fridge. Now, the only place I've been able to find that is at Walmart. So it kind of limits you a little bit because we don't go to Walmart all that often, but it's one of the things that we do stockpile when we do go there. So our butter chicken curry is all ready to go. If you're interested in that recipe, I will link it above or down in the description, but we have done it as its own video. So definitely check that out, and we're going to enjoy some dinner.